Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my show. Welcome back to Underground. As I said yesterday, there is a mainstream and alternative media, big names, and and they are underdogs like myself and the small channels. And I think we can designate ourselves to be underground of alternative media. But nevertheless, I think we are providing maybe even more relevant news and takes on major topics than some big names out there. But anyways, dear friends, thank you all for joining today's program. Main news update from me. First one was published early this morning by Moscow time on my Patreon and Boosty pages. I hope our community liked the video there. And so it is, of course, 20th of July now, 3 p.m. Moscow time. And dear friends, I know my live streams, these main news programs are quite long, 1 hour and 30 minutes, sometimes even longer than that. And not all of you can follow entire duration of the live stream. And therefore, from now on, I will try whenever I have a time for this to cut videos after the live stream, to cut full video in 2 or 3 pieces, and I will publish these shorter cuts like that. And based on headlines on those videos, you will have opportunity to make your decision. Would you like to watch it or not? This will be probably more convenient to maybe not everybody, but to some members of our community, maybe 50 people, maybe 100, maybe 500. I don't know, but I have seen many times comments that some members just cannot follow 1 hour, 2 hour streams, understandably, right? We all are busy. We all have to moderate our time. That's been said, dear friends, before I go through some news, and I have bookmarked for this program quite a number of updates on major developments that Russian media, Russian public is paying attention to. But before I launch the news segment itself, let me remind you that you can initiate conversation about any topic you like. If you will send your question or the commentary through PayPal platform, Boosty platform, or through Super Chat feature that is available on Rumble. And I'm streaming on both my channels on YouTube and Rumble. And of course, after the news segment, I'll try my best to be informative while responding to your questions and comments. And just in case, I'll drop in a YouTube chat right now, link to my Rumble channel. And if you have account, you can switch right now if you want or if you can. And okay, that's been said. Let's go through some news now, and I will start with the maritime topic of maritime blockade that Russia is kind of introducing nowadays on Ukraine, on the Kiev-controlled territory. And first, I will share with you this report from TASS News Agency based on Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation that Russian forces struck yet again Ukrainian ports used in the interests of the Ukrainian armed forces. Of course, first and foremost, we are talking about Odessa city portal infrastructure and Odessa region in general, because there is many ports in Odessa region. So Russian forces continue to strike Ukrainian ports used by Ukrainian air forces overnight. According to Russian Ministry of Defense, fuel and lubricant storage tanks of Ukrainian air forces were hit in port of Odessa. But as I said, dear friends, Odessa region is packed with portal infrastructure. It's not just Odessa itself, but obviously Chernomorsk is a bigger maritime logistical hub, and also on the Danube River. On the Danube River, dear friends, there is quite a number of ports. Reni, for example, Ismail Porter, of course, this one is Ismail, and there are some others also. And Russian armed forces methodically are eliminating portal infrastructure in Odessa region to make sure that Kiev regime wouldn't be able to receive military equipment, munition, and whatever else they are receiving for military purposes through waterways, right? Either through Black Sea or Danube River. And when it comes to these latest developments, relatively latest developments, when Russian militaries and security services looks like receive green light to go for implementation of a maritime blockade, 37 vessels already was struck that were delivering some military goods for Kiev regime's armed forces, for Kiev regime's military capabilities. I can give you some details on that. So from July 13 to 19th, Russian military forces struck at least 37 sea vessels used to deliver military supplies and perform other tasks for the Ukrainian armed forces, according to RIA Novosti's calculations based on data from Russian security agencies. And RIA Novosti, you know, dear friends, one of the biggest news agencies here in Russia. The largest number of ships were hit on July 14 and 15. 7 vessels were struck on each of these days. Russian militaries also hit 6 naval targets on July 13 and 17, 5 on July 18, 4 on July 19, and 2 on July 16. In just 1 week, at least 25 dry cargo ships, 3 bulk carriers, 3 container ships, 2 sea ferries, and tanker, a host vessel, high-speed boat of Ukrainian Armed Forces Special Operations Units, and 1 more boat were struck as a result of this activity of the Russian armed forces. And hopefully politicians will not intervene into military affairs, into military matters, and the Russian Defense Ministry will have a green light all along to finalize this maritime embargo. And I'm quite sure without political intervention, Russian militaries will succeed in this task in a relatively short time, and soon Kiev regime literally would not be able to receive anything whatsoever, either through Danube River or through Black Sea. And when it comes to this activity of Russian militaries to cut off Kiev regime, this Western-backed terrorist and Nazi regime in Ukraine from supplies through either Black Sea or Danube River, Russian militaries continue their activities to eliminate vessels that are carrying certain goods for Kiev regime's armed forces. Right now on your screen, you can see imagery depicted from a video that advanced Russian Geran 4 drone was sending to operator while getting closer to yet another vessel that eventually was struck. During this operation, another vessel was struck and caught fire, also one that was heading towards Odessa region. You can see on your screen, dear friends, aftermath of this strike, vessel caught fire, and a number of channels reported that eventually vessel sank due to damage that was done to it. But there are other reports too that claimed that Turkey regime sent their firefighter boats towards the vessel. They managed to extinguish the fire and then move the vessel towards their coastal line. But either way, giving the videos that are available out there and the photo materials, vessel itself and the cargo on the vessel probably took some serious damage, and there is no way this vessel anytime soon going to be able to deliver to Kiev regime anything whatsoever if it actually survived this strike. And Russian militaries continue these long-range attacks on military, logistical, naval infrastructure, maritime infrastructure of the Kiev regime throughout the day today. And we have reports that number of Russian Onyx missiles have once again struck legit targets in Odessa area. You can see aftermath of this strike on your screen right now. And this is not all. When it comes to Odessa region, Russian militaries conducted long-range strikes on military and logistical infrastructure on the ground deep into Odessa region too. And you can see consequences of this attack. Yet another warehouse was eliminated where Kiev regime was storing some weapons and munition. But obviously, it's not just Odessa region or Nikolaev region that are in the focus of Russian militaries these days to implement their maritime embargo or blockade. But of course, Russian militaries are taking out legit targets on the Kiev controlled territory all over the place, right? From north to south. And you can see on your screen right now aftermath of yet another Russian long-range precision strike on a logistical hub of Nova Pochta in Zaporozhye region. Reports are that this logistical hub was one of the biggest ones in Zaporozhye. Some claim that this was actually biggest. Good, if so, because Kyiv regime lost then biggest logistical center that it was using for military purposes. And you know, dear friends, I have shared many times videos and photo confirmations that Nova Pochta warehouses and Nova Pochta trucks were actively used there by Kyiv regime and its NATO backers to transfer weaponry and munition towards the front lines. So it is absolutely legitimate target. No one can claim that Nova Pochta is a purely civilian enterprises because there is just factual evidences, right? Video, photo, a lot of it on internet. Anybody can search it and confirm that. Also, you know, dear friends, no matter their evidences, Kyiv regime and its NATO backers love to whine about Russia targeting civilian infrastructure. And there was another attack on one of the warehouses of Kyiv regime that was used for military purposes to store weaponry. And there was another hysteria on behalf of our enemies that, well, Russia targeted civilian infrastructure. And funny enough, when police, so-called police of Kyiv regime, went into place and filmed everything, right? Consequences of Russian attack, because those so-called policemen are literally stupid, right? Probably like one brain cell only operates in their head. They filmed their drones. They filmed the drones, by the way, themselves and published this video on their own website. And when people spotted that drones were depicted in the frame, they quickly deleted this video, altered the video, right? But nevertheless, many people copied it, right? And on your screen right now, you can see, dear friends, these boxes that are encircled, it's the drone boxes of Vyry drone company, which is formerly Ukrainian drone manufacturing company that produces FPV drones and other type of weaponry. In reality, they are just receiving already pre-assembled or parts of these drones from China and elsewhere, and just putting their mark on the drones, right? Just boxing this stuff to claim that it's their own production. So that's what happens, by the way. Whenever you hear in the Western propaganda that, well, Russia is targeting civilian infrastructure, remember these stories. This is not the first time, not the second time or the third time when after Russian strikes on certain warehouses, evidences are emerging, despite all the claims of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers that it was a civilian area. Video evidences are emerging that these areas actually were used to store weapons and munition. And this is just another instance of that. Also, Russian armed forces, dear friends, targeted military and logistical infrastructure while actively using this advanced Geran 4 drones in the Kharkov region. You can see on your screen right now episodes that when this attack was carried out, and also in the Chernigov region. In addition, we have this report that yet again with the Geran 4 seeker drones, Russian armed forces eliminated energy infrastructure that was related to military activity of Kyiv regime in Chernigov region and also in the Poltava region. And when it comes to these Geran 4 drones, you know, dear friends, these advanced drones are actively using satellite internet, right? Satellite internet. I spoke about this matter quite a few times. If you remember, about a week ago, I shared information that Bureau 1440 that provides Russian militaries, I believe, with the satellite internet, was planning to launch additional satellites into orbit, which will further enhance their capabilities and capabilities of Russian militaries, obviously, and that's exactly what happened. Today we have an update that Bureau 1440 has increased the number of satellites in the Rassvet low orbit constellation. On July 19, yesterday, the Russian aerospace company Bureau 1440 conducted the second launch of satellites from the Rassvet low orbiter constellation. The company's press service told the Kommersant newspaper, although company refused to give numbers of satellites that were deployed into orbit. Understandably so, because I believe this satellite internet that Russian advanced drones and other Russian military equipment is implementing now or using now. I mean, this is sensitive information, obviously, right? And Bureau 1440 and the Defense Ministry, if my guess is correct, and this is exactly the company that provides Russian militaries with the satellite intelligence, of course, they have every reason to be very cautious, right? So why should they let anybody know, especially enemies, by the way, of ours, how many satellites we have on orbit when it comes to this Rassvet low orbit constellation? Let's keep it to ourselves, right? And let's continue work and further development. And I'm quite sure, dear friends, maybe even before, I cannot be sure about it, but I think there is a high probability that maybe even before end of special military operation, Bureau 1440 will be able to deploy its commercial modifications for public use, right? When it comes to this satellite internet, this is Russian answer, let's say, to American Starlink, right? And giving the quality of video that these Ground 4 drones are transmitting to their operators. Clearly, this is very faster internet that Bureau 1440 is able to provide Russian militaries and their consumers, private citizens, or the businesses. Once they will go fully commercial, of course, will also enjoy this faster satellite internet. Definitely a good development, by the way. And if you remember, a few years ago, when news just broke about ambitions of Bureau 1440 to develop satellite internet, I was reporting about it, right? And I remember myself, I was sharing information about first tests with the first few satellites that Bureau 1414 launched. And first thing that I said at the time and come to my mind was that maybe this company will be the one that will eventually provide Russian militaries and eventually also Russian civilian market with satellite internet as an alternative to American Starlink. And I mean, my guess was correct. Now I am 99% confident that my guess was correct, because most likely Russian militaries are using Rassvet low orbiter constellation for satellite internet. Good stuff there, by the way. Good stuff. Although, unfortunately, dear friends, no matter how many times and how effectively Russian armed forces will conduct these long-range strikes on military, logistical, energy infrastructure of the Kiev regime on the Kiev-controlled territory, because of the fact that dozens of NATO member states are involved in the mass production of drones, long-range drones that are used against Russian Federation. All we can do with these strikes on Kiev-controlled territory is to create some delays when it comes to logistics of these NATO member states and their Ukrainian Nazi partners to transfer drones from Europe to Ukraine and then to prepare them for launch. But we cannot completely cut or stop these long-range attacks, because yet again, these drones are produced in the West, right? In the Western countries. I know out there is a discussion nowadays, dear friends, quite actively, that can and people are being asking, can we even call these long-range drones European drones or NATO-made drones when most of the parts of these drones are produced in China, and then through intermediaries sent to Europe, where these parts are assembled in a final product, in an attack drone, right? And then disassembled again, shipped to Kiev regime, where there is assembly lines, and then are used against Russia. And I think, of course, we can call these drones the European or NATO drones. The US is also actively engaged in all of this drone production, by the way, and Canadians also. But obviously, we cannot ignore the fact that, unfortunately, it is true that many components, I cannot give you exact percentage like 80% or 70% or 60%, but significant portion of the components or the parts of these drones that are used against Russia are originated in China and then sold to some third parties, and eventually through that third, fourth parties are ending up in hands of NATO member states, and eventually transferred to Ukraine to be used against Russia. But nevertheless, I think there is a possibility how we can deter NATO member states to be engaged in this crime. Right? All we have to do for this is to restore deterrent, and that will be it. All we have to do is to restore deterrent, and that's it. Right? Kiev regime on its own will definitely struggle to even stay alive, right, for more than a couple of months after Western ruling class will be forced to get out of this war. But as of now, there is no deterrent in place, so therefore, as I said, with our long-range attacks, of course, we are dealing significant damage to enemy's military capabilities, and this is visible first and foremost on the battlefield. But unfortunately, when it comes to long-range strike capabilities of NATO member states and the Ukrainian proxies, all we can do right now without restoring deterrent with the collective West is to create some inconveniences for them, right? Some delays and stuff like that. But they're still going to be able to launch drones, and that's what they do. Past night alone, Russian Air Defense Forces intercepted 381 drones. For example, over the Belgorod, Bryansk, Volgograd, Voronezh, Kaluga, Kursk, Lipetsk, Oryol, Rostov, Ryazan, Smolensk, Tambov, Tula regions, the Moscow region, Krasnodar Krai, Republic of Crimea, and over the waters of the Azov and the Black Sea. Vast geography of the large, this yet another large-scale long-range attack on the Russian Federation, unfortunately. And well, even though Defense Ministry stated that they did manage to intercept 381 drones, actual number of drones that were launched by Kyiv regime and its NATO backers probably were in around 450, 500 drones maybe overnight, because we have this report here, dear friends, that over Moscow region, about 400 drones were neutralized. Over Moscow region alone, past night, 85 drones were intercepted, while these drones were almost on the border with Moscow itself, right? Let me give you details on that. So, attempted attack on Moscow by enemy drones over the past evening and the night was one of the largest in several years, according to TASS calculations based on data published by Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin on the Max channel. According to his report, according to report of Mayor of Moscow, between 8:30 p.m. yesterday, Moscow time on July 19 and 5 a.m. Moscow time on July 20, more than 400 enemy drones were flying towards the capital region, towards the Moscow region. Most were neutralized by the air defense forces on their distant approaches, and 85 drones were destroyed as they approach Moscow itself. So you can see, dear friends, one of the largest attacks on the Moscow region and Moscow since the beginning of the special military operation. And this is happening despite a quite significant increase of Russian long-range strikes on a Kyiv-controlled territory, because yet again, while striking in Ukraine on legit targets in Ukraine. Of course, we are dealing significant damage that will have an impact on the battle capabilities of Kyiv regime on the ground, on the battlefield itself. But long-range capabilities of Kyiv regime are, in reality, long-range capabilities, long-range strike capabilities of NATO. And without deterring NATO from these attacks, unfortunately, there is very little reasons to believe that this attack is gonna stop. And as I said, Moscow region was one of the main targets of past night's attacks. And during the day, by the way, also dozens of drones were intercepted by air defense forces. And when it comes to past night attack, Podolsk was hit hard. City in the Moscow region, well, not far away from Moscow. Reports are that yet another warehouse, a logistical center of Wildberries company was targeted and significantly damaged. Some reports say completely destroyed. I'm not there, so I cannot assess the damage, but that's what reports are. And this is a third warehouse of Wildberries that was struck, by the way, in just past several days by Kyiv regime's forces and their NATO backers. And if Nova Pochta, for example, in Ukraine is known to be used for military purposes, Wildberries, by the way, as a purely civilian company, was never used by Russian militaries for anything, right? They never had no need to do so. It's a pure terror campaign on behalf of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers. It's a war crime. This is a purely civilian company that has nothing to do with the militaries. But yet again, because it's the biggest company here in Russia in this sector of internet sales, right? It's like Amazon, by the way, in America, right? Because it's the biggest company, because it provides a platform for sales for thousands, tens of thousands of small and medium businesses. Of course, if this company starts experiencing major difficulties, that will impact potentially hundreds of thousands of people, if you count also family members of those that basically make some money while doing business together with Wildberries, right? Nothing to be said about Wildberries employees themselves that now are losing job, right? In hundreds, potentially thousands. And most importantly, dear friends, during these attacks on the Wildberries, at least seven civilians were killed in one warehouse during the attack. Dozens and dozens were wounded, and one civilian was killed and dozens wounded during the attack on another warehouse. And as of now, unfortunately, we don't really have detailed information about scale of damage during this third attack on Wildberries and about casualties. Hopefully, there were no casualties. Hopefully, at least there were no casualties. But yes, Wildberries was attacked again, and also oil depot, according to reports, was targeted also in the Podolsk area. And during this large-scale attack on Russian capital and Moscow region, number of drones struck, I think intentionally, high-rise apartment buildings. All these attacks on civilian infrastructure, by the way, is obviously intentional actions on behalf of British intelligence, British militaries that are leading this terror campaign against Russian people, while using assistance from US intelligence and militaries and hiding behind the Kyiv regime for plausible deniability, right? And there are numerous videos on the internet out there about this Ukrainian/NATO drones are striking not just civilian infrastructure, but also civilian residential areas. And I can show you right now one of such videos. Drone, you can tell it by silhouette of the drone, and look, it's clearly intentional. You see, early morning, people are at home, and the high-rise apartment building is struck. That's what Kyiv regime does, by the way. That's what its NATO backers do. They are going after civilians absolutely intentionally. Absolutely intentionally. This is not a mistake. These are intentional attacks on Russian civilians as a part of terror campaign that was launched a few years ago now by British secret services and British militaries, British ruling class. They are leading the charge against Russian people. And unfortunately, of course, there was casualties as a result of these attacks on civilian infrastructure and residential areas. And by this moment, what we know is that at least 10 people were injured in drone attacks on the Moscow region. Of course, emergency services are working in the areas that were targeted, and all the civilians are receiving necessary medical attention. There are reports that at least one civilian is in extremely difficult condition as a result of these drone attacks. Hopefully, medics will manage to save lives of everybody that was harmed during their attacks. And there was, of course, strikes, long-range attacks in other directions too, as Russian Defense Ministry's update mentions. And, well, Crimea was one of such directions, and at least until a few hours ago, there was reports in the media, and Kommersant newspaper, for example, published this article at 1:36 p.m., right? Literally 1.5 hours ago, that part of Crimea was left without power and water as a result of long-range attacks by Kyiv regime on the peninsula. So situation in Crimea is still very, very difficult in many ways because of these constant long-range attacks orchestrated by British ruling class, British intelligence, British militaries, and their American allies and Ukrainian proxies. Although situation hopefully will improve soon, hopefully, and there is reasons to believe that this well might happen because Balitsky, for example, governor of Zaporozhye region, while meeting with the Russian President Putin, stated that Russian military has established practically full control over the skies over R280 Novorossiya highway that connects mainland Russia with the Crimea. I'm talking about, of course, this piece of land right here that is a land bridge, basically for Crimea to Russia, with Russia, right? The rest of the Russia. So good if Russian militaries finally manage to establish control, full control over this highway, right? So Russian armed forces have taken full control of energy facilities and the R280 Novorossiya highway, which connects the region with the Crimea in Zaporozhye region. In the Zaporozhye region, protect against Ukrainian army drones. To protect against Ukrainian drones, this was stated by Zaporozhye region governor Yevgeny Balitsky during a meeting with Vladimir Putin, president of the Russian Federation. And this is a good news, obviously. This is a good news. I have seen numerous videos, by the way, of Russian mobile air defense forces being deployed on this Novorossiya highway, and most of the drones that are launched or struck trucks on this highway nowadays are intercepted. And hopefully all of them will be intercepted soon, and Crimea will have its relief, right? And all the goods from fuel to everything else will reach peninsula without much obstacles, right? Let's hope so. Meanwhile, we also have reports that Turkey regime and its NATO backers once again targeted assets of CPC, Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which is a Kazakhstani corporation, formerly Kazakhstani corporation, but shares in this corporation are big time in the hands of American companies like Chevron, for example. I reported, dear friends, a few days ago that two tankers were struck in a terminal of Caspian Pipeline Consortium while oil was pumped into these tankers. There was some damage to terminals also, and now we have report again that another tanker, third tanker, was struck by Kiev regime's forces and their NATO backers while be stationed in a terminal of this CPC. Let me give you details. So Caspian Pipeline Consortium reported another drone attack on oil tanker at its terminal near Novorossiysk, forcing it to again halt loading of crude. And this Caspian Consortium, Pipeline Consortium, 99.5% of oil that it transfers is Kazakhstani oil. Maybe even 100%, by the way, right? It's Kazakhstani business, right, that uses Russian territory for this infrastructure, and it's a profitable business for Russia too, right? Because they pay taxes and whatever they pay. But this is a Kazakhstani business. This is not Russian business, right? But yet again, I think CPC was targeted numerous times by British intelligence, British militaries, British ruling class to keep pressure on Astana so that Kazakhstani security services and militaries will not intervene in the terrorist activity of UK, US, and their Ukrainian proxies when it comes to assembly lines of their drones, that attack drones that they have in Kazakhstan and are launching from Kazakhstan to strike deep into Russia, especially in the eastern parts of the Russian Federation that are bordering with Kazakhstan. That's what is going on, by the way. You might ask why Kazakhstan interest being struck. That's why. This is a message from London to Astana, capital of Kazakhstan, not to intervene in a terrorist activity of UK, US, and Ukraine on the Kazakhstani territory. That's what it is. That's what it is. I'll give you some additional information from this report. On July 20, civilian sea tanker was attacked again at the CPC Marine Terminal. The company said in a statement, it is specified that the terrorist attack by unmanned aerial vehicle was carried out on the tanker Nelsa, which was being loaded at the VPU-1 station on this terminal. The company resumed oil loading on the evening of July 19 following a previous attack on its terminal, but stopped it again following a drone attack on a tanker near the facility on July 20. When it comes to consequences, as a result of heat, their AFT part of their starboard side between their superstructure and their engine room fire broke out on the deck and in the tanker's compartments. The fire was extinguished within a few hours. Vessel remained afloat. Oil spill and ignition in the tanks were prevented. The international crew, consisting 22 people, was evacuated on a CPC tugboats, with the exception of the captain and his first deputy. I guess captain stay on a board. Okay. At least there was no casualties as a result of this attack, and there was no oil spill. But how many times Black Sea can be this lucky when tankers being attacked by British and American terrorists left and right? It's only a matter of time when the massive ecological disaster gonna happen, man. It's just a matter of time, obviously, right? Or who knows? Maybe tomorrow Russian president will say, yeah, enough is enough. Let's restore the terror with the collective West. And in that case, there will be no more attacks whatsoever, because Russia can very quickly show Western ruling class where their place is. And yet again, by the way, maybe, or hopefully at least, that's exactly what is going to happen. You know my take on the situation. I'm like since forever, it feels like forever now. big supporter of restoring deterrent with the collective West, because it is absolutely clear for me that without restoring deterrent, we would not be able to neither stop these long-range attacks on Russian Federation that are orchestrated by NATO member states, neither will be able to fast-track finalization of their special military operation. We need to restore deterrent. It is obvious, and we have numerous reasons to do so, right? Numerous reasons to do so. Western ruling class crossed all the red lines that there was, right? Including Russian nuclear triad that should never be touched, right, by anybody in no circumstances. But unfortunately, there was quite a number of attacks even on Russian nuclear triad, and the latest one, dear friends, I report about it, happened on 16th of July, in case some members of the community forgot about it. Latest attack on Russian nuclear triad happened on 16th of July, when formally Ukrainian drones, in reality, obviously, drones that were launched and directed by NATO member states, UK and US, first and foremost, struck and destroyed yet another Russian strategical bomber, Tu-95, on Engels airfield. And right now on your screen, you can see aftermath of this attack. Tu-95, as a result of strike and subsequent damage and the fire, was basically split in two parts. You can see on low picture here, right? That plane just broke into parts, and these planes are not produced no more, right? It's a massive loss for Russian strategical forces. This is definitely crossing of the red line by NATO member states. Russian nuclear doctrine gives all the rights to Russian president to retaliate on enemy by any means, including nuclear weapons. And I'm not advocating nuclear weapons to be deployed, by the way, not at all. But Russian nuclear doctrine gives Russian president such a right, because Russian nuclear triad being attacked, Russian strategical infrastructure is being attacked, right? And the nuclear doctrine is very clear on that. That if this happens, then the president is authorized to deploy even nuclear weapons if he chooses to. But no one is calling for nuclear weapons to be used against NATO member states, but especially because we are well capable of restoring deterrent with the collective West, with the conventional weaponry, right? With conventional weaponry. And I mean, one might only hope, man, that Russian President Vladimir Putin will do something about it, right? And there will greenlight Russian security services and militaries to restore this deterrent, which is absolutely necessary. And well, you might say, dear friends, that you're the one being like a hardliner or too aggressive or something like that. I don't think so, dear friends. I hate wars and confrontations, but if it comes to it, by the way, you have to do what you have to do, right? That's what it is. And we clearly have to restore deterrent with the collective West. Majority of community probably will agree with me. But to make sure, dear friends, that it's not just me that are sharing with you this opinion, or it's not just me that calls for deterrent to be restored with the collective West, I recommend to you, dear friends, a very interesting conversation between Glenn Deason and Stanislav Krapivnik. Video was published yesterday, I believe. I listened to it. And in many ways, Stanislav Krapivnik is on the same page as I am, right? When it comes to restoring deterrent with the collective West and necessity of that, right? And I recommend, dear friends, to take a look at their video, right, on Glenn Deason's channel. Of course, you all are familiar with both experts, Glenn Deason and Stanislav Krapivnik, and you will see that it's not just Levan that's saying that we have to restore deterrent with the collective West. It's Stanislav Krapivnik, and it's many other people. Majority, by the way, majority here in Russia calls deterrent to be restored with the collective West. And pressure is increasing on Russian president to do exactly that. It is anybody's guess, sir. Will he listen to society or not? Will he listen to militaries and security services or not? But many people, right, understands perfectly well that without restoring the terror with the collective West, these long-range attacks will never stop, and constant long-range attacks will further increase casualties on the Russian side, among civilians included, destruction of infrastructure, and also will slow down, in some ways, progress of the Russian armed forces on the battlefield. So the deterrent has to be restored, by the way. It's not a question of options there, right? Because there is no options, actually. We just have to do this. We just have to do this. One of the countries that are actively engaged there and basically leading with the UK and Germany charge against Russian people is, of course, Germany, under the current globalist leadership. And I guess this German leadership, globalists, they do understand that it might be only a matter of time when Putin no longer be able, possibly, to ignore public pressure, political pressure, right? Pressure from business that is also harmed big time by these long-range attacks. And maybe one day Putin will actually greenlight Russian militaries and security services to take action to restore deterrent. And everyone understands we can only restore deterrent with the retaliatory strikes on those NATO member states. And one of the NATO member states that in that case will be struck is obviously Germany, right? Legit targets in Germany, which is a military industrial complex, obviously facilities companies in a military industrial complex, some military bases, especially ones that are used as logistical hubs, obviously intelligence network that are probably used against Russian Federation. Russian security services know perfectly well what is the legit target, right? But Germany is definitely among those NATO member states that definitely will be struck if Russian security services and militaries will receive green light to restore the deterrent with the collective West. And Berlin knows about it, globalists know about it, globalist puppets in German leadership know about it. And when it comes to globalist puppets, most German political elites, most German political class, most of it is puppets of globalists, by the way, right? From Merz to you pick one, all of them, right? And so entire system is built to serve globalists there in Germany. And so not surprisingly, we have a report here from France 24 that Germany will join France's nuclear exercises for the first time in history to boost defense cooperation. So Germany, that as of now at least has no nuclear weapons, is seeking obviously nuclear umbrella from France, from UK, from US also, and the US actually has nuclear weapons, by the way, tactical nuclear weapons in Germany, and I believe, and this is definitely indicator, I think, that Western ruling class understands perfectly well how dangerous their actions actually are for their countries that they are formally in charge of, right? Because they know they are provoking Russia on daily basis. And I mean, let's be real, by the way. I don't think France gonna go nuclear against Russia if Russian forces take out legit targets in Germany. No matter what Macron and Merz might agree or disagree right now, there is no way Paris gonna launch nukes against Russian Federation if Russian militaries use conventional weaponry to eliminate certain targets, legit targets in Germany. Or even in France, by the way. Paris will not even think about deploying nukes against Russia, even if we struck legit targets in France. because if they even think about deploying nuclear weapons against Russian Federation, that will be death sentence to France, for the France, because Russia can literally incinerate entire France, man. Like 100 times, and then another 100 times, and then 100 times again, and then again, and then again, and then again, and we will still have enough nukes to do so another 1,000 times. That's the difference between nuclear capabilities of France and Russia, right? So I think Germany understands, German political class understands that all these talks that France will provide them with the nuclear umbrella, UK will provide, UK cannot provide nothing to nobody, by the way. They are bold as long as they've been allowed to act, right? This crazy, but as soon as Russia restores deterrent, well, you will see what UK actually is, man. Chihuahua, right? Rabbit Chihuahua, though. I mean, you know, Chihuahuas are nasty dogs, by the way, right? Extremely, extremely nasty. All it takes is just one slap, right? And that's it. But nevertheless, I mean, they are nasty, man. And you can imagine what Rabbit Chihuahua would be, right? That's the UK, Rabbit Chihuahua. And so no one going to provide Germany with no freaking nuclear umbrella, obviously. But that is the reason, I think, why German ruling class is thinking about their own nuclear weapons, right? They understand that no one gonna provide them actually with nuclear umbrella, so they're gonna go nuclear on their own. And I have some updates on this topic, dear friends, with you for you and I'll share that in a few minutes. But I also, before that, I also want to give you this information that Trump posted on his Truth Social and called the Republicans basically to add Iran to anti-Russian sanctions bill. And he said that Lindsey Graham, this extreme Russophobe scumbag that is already in hell, was wanted it, right? That's what Trump says. And I want to share with you this information to highlight once again that Trump and his administration were never, ever about de-escalation with Russia. Never. Anchorage summit was deception. Anchorage was total deception, by the way, right? And Trump himself is saying this, isn't it? Trump's statements, Trump's actions clearly demonstrate that Anchorage was a deception. It is unfortunate that Russian leadership failed to that deception, right? And it's even more unfortunate that some individuals in inner circle of Russian presidents still to nowadays going about Anchorage spirit. I mean, this is insanity, right? This is truly crazy. That there are some people out there in inner circle of Putin that still are messing around this topic of Anchorage and Anchorage summit, man. Those people probably have no dignity whatsoever, right? Have no self-respect, no dignity, no nothing. Trump is laughing at them, man. Trump is literally laughing at them, right? With this kind of posts. And Rubio, a few weeks ago, Rubio himself says, just don't disturb me with your Anchorage topic. That was his attitude. I'm interpreting now. But he was clearly disturbed, right? When he was asked like numerous times, Anchorage summit. Eventually he fed up and he said, well, what Anchorage summit? There was nothing there, right? We just exchanged opinions. That was it. So don't disturb me with this nonsense no more. That's their attitude, man. That they are demonstrating, U.S. administration. And here in Russia, in the circle of Putin, there are some people that still are going around with this nonsense, by the way, that there was an Anchorage summit. Seriously, man. Goodness me. Anyways, dear friends, let's continue with some other news. And I do have a big update for you, man. Big update, but there is a lot of interesting stuff that is going on there. One more thing, dear friends, with these extremely, extremely disrespectful steps from American side, disrespectful towards Russian leadership. That's how I see it anyways, right? I think that will probably uh, maybe that will have some impact on the decision-making process in the Kremlin, and maybe this kind of disrespectful attitude from Washington will help Putin to make up his mind about his further steps in regards to NATO, in regards to collective Western ruling class, and maybe he will actually authorize Russian security services and militaries, therefore, to restore the terms with the collective West sooner rather than later. Maybe. We don't know yet, but maybe. Either way, let's continue with some other news. And there, of course, there is a long-range exchange of fire between NATO, Kiev regime, and the Russian Federation. And there is also developments on the battlefield. And when it comes to battlefield, by the way, of course, domination is totally in the Russian hands. Yesterday, during their big community chatter, I shared information that Russian armed forces liberated Volna settlement in the Dnipropetrovsk region and improved their positions practically all along the front line. Today, we have additional reports that, for example, Russian armed forces in the Kharkov region eliminated several groups of stormtroopers from infamous Skala formation, neo-Nazi formation of their Kiev regime. I can give you details on that. So Russian troops eliminated the stormtroopers, right? Stormtroopers of Skala regiment of the Kiev regime's forces in the Kharkov region. Security forces told the RIA Novosti news agency. I can give you a quote. There is three assault groups, by the way, from this 425th assault regiment, that is Skala regiment, advanced from Bugaevka towards Kazachia Lopan. Our reconnaissance forces, Russian reconnaissance forces promptly detected their enemy's movement, and as a result of ambushes and as a result of countermeasures, all Ukrainian nationalists from this Skala Stormer trooper regiments units were eliminated. All of them. There were no survivors, by the way, from this Skala regiment. And, well, I have said before, dear friends, that war has its own unwritten rules, right? They are, and everybody knows that. Everybody has read about it. Of course, there is a Geneva Convention. Of course, there is Geneva Convention. But nevertheless, there are certain units on enemy side that are well known to be mass murderers, Nazis, fascists, mass murderers, well known to be ones that committed their numerous crimes against civilians. And when those units ending up on the line of contact, usually there are no negotiations with them to surrender. All of them are eliminated, literally. And that's exactly what happened. I guess Russian commander of their Russian units in this area did not even propose enemy forces to surrender. They've been ambushed and they're eliminated completely. That's what happens with the Nazi formations, with the mass murderers formations, by the way, right? And yet again, one might don't like it. One might say this is too cruel, but no, I think mass murderers, criminals that committed their crimes against humanity, killed civilians, they cannot be treated based on some humanitarian approach, Geneva Convention or whatever. As it is the case in regards to mercenaries, by the way, mercenaries not being covered by Geneva Convention, right? But this is my guess. Yet again, my interpretation that maybe Russian commander did not even offer hostile forces to surrender, even though it was obvious that they're all going to be eliminated now. And if I was a commander, I would do the same. I would not even think about giving them opportunity to surrender, man. I wouldn't. And even if they would ask me to surrender, that they want to surrender, I will say, no, man, we're going to fight now. And one of our either you all gonna die, either all of us gonna die, but we're not gonna take you in a prisoner. No, we're gonna fight. That's what I will do, man. There can be no mercy towards Nazis and the fascists and the mass murderers. No mercy whatsoever, right? So it is good that three freaking units of this Nazi Skala formation were eliminated by Russian troops on the battlefield. Overall, in past 24 hours, Russian armed forces eliminated more than 1,400 enemy troops on the battlefield, which is a big number, by the way, obviously. And in the past week, according to Andrei Marochko, military expert from LPR, Russian armed forces eliminated about 10,000 military personnel of enemy, killed and wounded, by the way. This is killed and wounded, not just KIA, but also 300s, right, injured ones. And on the line of contact, there is designations, right? 200 is killed, 300 is wounded. 200, 300. I think this designation is coming from Afghan war, but I can be wrong in that. If I remember correctly, this designation is coming from Afghan war. Anyways, when it comes to this Skala regiment, this Skala neo-Nazi regiment, they end up also in a difficult or even humiliating situation in another episode. And story is, dear friends, that these 400 commanders of this 425th Brigade, Skala Brigade, Nazi formation, and I guess under the orders of Kiev regime itself, Zelensky or Syrsky or whomever, well, they decided that they're going to send their militants into Konstantinovka direction to infiltrate the city and then to raise the flags in different parts, film it, send the video to Kiev regime so that they will then go for a media campaign that you see Konstantinovka is under Kiev's control. And I guess Russian militaries were monitoring the movement of these formations in the area, and they allow these Kiev regime's units from Skala regiment, Nazi regiment, to enter the Konstantinovka. They've been allowed to film, by the way, to make films, to raise the flags and do whatever their show they were doing there. And then Russian militaries eliminated them, right? Russian militaries killed literally all of them, with the exception of few. Few were left. These neo-Nazi creatures from Skala formation were left alive. And you know why? I'm going to show you why. Whoever was in command of this operation from Russian side, that person definitely has some good sense of humor, irony, dark humor even, because I'm going to show you a video, by the way, now, and you tell me what you think about it. So, as I said, initially, these units from Skala were allowed to enter, right? To enter Konstantinovka, certain parts of Konstantinovka. Russian troops allowed them to film, made videos with the flags and stuff like that. And then Russian troops went for action, right? Eliminated all of them with the exception of few. And you will see those few now. You will see those few, by the way. And I would not even comment. In the beginning of this video, you will see parts that these Nazis, Ukrainian Nazis, filmed initially and sent it to Kiev regime so that they will publish it and claim that they control Konstantinovka. That's exactly what they did. By the way. They published these videos. Look.
Пане президенте, пане головнокомандувач, дозвольте доповісти, що сьогодні бійцями полку Скеля.
That's the first one. That was the part that was allowed, that the Russian side allowed these neo-Nazis to film and then send, right? Kiev regime actually published these videos and start claiming that they are in charge of Konstantinovka. And then, look, second part of the video.
Я Мосин Євген Олександрович, позивний Мося, 425-й полк «Скеля».
Я Столярский Сергей Сергеевич, 425 полк, Скеля,
Now they speak Russian. You guessed why?
позывной Кент.
Нас послали в город Константиновка, зная, что она находится под контролем российских солдат.
Basically, this one is saying that they've been sent into Constantinople, even though their commanders knew perfectly well city was controlled by Russian forces. And they've been sent to basically do this PR stand, right? To raise the flags, film it, and send it. And that's exactly what they've been allowed on the initial stage to do. But then something changed, right?
Наши побратимы погибли.
And this another one is saying that, their comrades were all killed, just these ones being left alive, and they are thanking Russian troops for leaving them alive.
Нас оставили в живых, отнеслись к нам с уважением. Мы находимся сейчас в реках.
Октябрь. Спасибо 4-й бригаде 2-го ТРО. Спасибо 4-й бригаде 2-го ТРО. Слава Российской Федерации.
And what about final there? They dropped this flag that they filmed initially, and they raised the Russian flag. That's also the stories that are happening on the line of contact, by the way, right? And probably many people in the West, while seeing these propaganda videos from Kiev regime with the flags and all that stuff in the Constantinople, probably many of them believe that, you see, Constantinople is controlled by Kiev regime, but in reality, no, man, Constantinople is controlled by Russian Federation, and for quite a while now, actually, for quite a while. So that's also some interesting details that are happening on the line of a contact, quite often unnoticed, right? This kind of situations quite often go unnoticed, but this time around, I noticed this, many others noticed this, but of course, after this special military operation will end, there will be so many stories, by the way, that we will learn about different operations that could be classified by now, but then will be probably declassified, about many acts of heroism that was committed by Russian military personnel, and then many movies going to be made about all of it, isn't it? That's been said, let's continue with some other news. While Kiev regime on one hand is engaged in all sorts of PR campaigns that left dead a lot of its military personnel, including from neo-Nazi formations, inside the Kiev and other cities in Ukraine, this new Maidan type of demonstrations are gaining momentum, kind of. And dear friends, these demonstrations that were launched like 5 days ago now, initially were based on a protest against firing the Fyodorov, former defense minister of Ukraine, by Zelensky. Then eventually, these protesters began demanding not just Fyodorov to be restored as defense minister, but current head of General Staff Syrsky to be removed from his position. And nowadays, every now and then, by the way, on these demonstrations, you can see calls against Zelensky himself. And I guess Zelensky is becoming a little scared. And that's why many media outlets, including Western ones, big names in the West, already published information that Zelensky allegedly considering to fire Syrsky, but because these protests are organized by special groups of interest from the West, it might happen that even if Zelensky will fire Syrsky now, this protest might not stop and eventually push Zelensky out of office. And maybe that's why big names in Ukrainian public arena, in Ukrainian politics, are also beginning to join these processes. Like, for example, Mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, who blasted dismissal of Fyodorov from position of defense ministry, and called it a big mistake on part of Zelensky. And he also said that he was shocked by the news, adding that of dismissal of Fyodorov, adding that current personnel changes harm the country's defense capabilities. And by the way, as I said, when big names are joining certain processes, that might be indicator that this quasi-Maidan that is gaining momentum, at least for now, in Ukraine, might actually have different tasks and purposes than restoring Fyodorov in the position of defense ministry or removing Syrsky. Probably they're going to go after Zelensky, maybe, right? And I remind you, dear friends, that Klitschko was trying actively in the past years to build certain connections with Zaluzhny. Because everyone understands that London bets on Zaluzhny to replace Zelensky, and even though Washington was not quite okay with Zaluzhny based on information in open sources, still many people believe that Zaluzhny still is a favorite. And it might be that this demonstration, this quasi-Maidan, is part of preparations of the ground to replace Zelensky with Zaluzhny. Well, might be the case, isn't it? And simultaneously, dear friends, one should keep in mind that one thing is what London is planning or Washington is planning, but there is a very different situation when it comes to Ukraine itself, because there is a number of Ukrainian groups of special interest that are actively engaged in a power struggle, actively engaged in corruption, right? And they are making billions upon billions, right? And all these groups are financing armed formations, by the way, that formally are part of defense ministry of Kyiv regime, right? But in reality, only taking orders from these groups of special interests. And if one of the groups, right, if Zelensky's group or Zaluzhny's group or any other powerful group will feel very threatened, right, they might actually begin deploying these armed formations that they are financing for years and years and years now. And in that case, this quasi-Maidan quickly might transform into actually civil war, all-out civil war between these corrupt groups of special interests, right? Or civil war inside this Western-backed terrorist and Nazi regime in Ukraine. Definitely something that probably Western ruling class is also thinking about, right? Because it is impossible to think that they don't know what's going on there. And that all these groups in Ukraine have their own armed formations. In many cases, they have hundreds upon hundreds of armed personnel on their side, thousands even, right? Especially powerful groups. Oh, they are operating. They can call up thousands of armed individuals on their side. So it might be that if London and Washington will lose control over the processes in Ukraine, we might actually see civil war inside their Kyiv regime. And if that was bad news, not enough bad news for Zelensky, there are some more, by the way. Neue Deutsche Zeitung, media outlet, I guess German one or Austrian one, I don't know, I mean, maybe Swiss one, It sounds German anyways, right? And by the way, Austrians speak German, right? Germans speak German, and I don't know, majority of Swiss or minority, but German is a state language in Switzerland too, isn't it? Anyways, this media outlet, Neue Zeitung, report that NATO could fail to deliver promised 140 billion euros to Kiev regime in 2026-2027 time period, which is a good news if true, obviously. With a significant sum spent or pledged to Kiev, their ambitious goal would require raising additional funds. And you guess how they're going to try to raise these additional funds? We are talking about hundreds of billions, right? From where they're going to get this money? They're going to increase taxes on European people, right? How else they're going to get this money, man? And because majority of governments in Europe, current governments in Europe, are extremely unpopular, there is quite a low probability that they will actually risk to raise taxes now, right, at this point. So therefore, maybe this newspaper is actually correct, and NATO will fail. I mean, this is the NATO's promise, but obviously it's the European Union that's going to pay. European Union and UK, right? They're going to pay. Taxpayers of these countries going to pay for a prolongation of this war, right? And well, they might fail to collect this money because it's a lot of money, man. 140 billion euros is a freaking lot of money for EU, and it is definitely a lot of money for any single country, either in EU or you can add UK, Toronto. It's a lot of money for any country, actually, isn't it? But I will be happy if they will fail to provide Kiev regime with this money, for sure. Let's hope they will fail, by the way. Let's hope so. That will definitely be some good stuff. And before I continue, dear friends, and there is a lot more news to share. But before I continue, let me highlight, if I may, that this media project exists only as long as I have your support, dear friends, community support, and if you like my work, if you like my programs, even though if you sometimes agree with me or disagree, but in general terms, if you like my programs, please consider to join our community of supporters of this project. You can support my work and this project through PayPal platform. A link is under this video in the description box. You can support my work by subscribing to my Patreon page, where I have extra content on regular basis, news updates and entertaining content, by the way. Also on the Boosty, right? So links to my Patreon and Boosty are also under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. You can donate in case you don't have a PayPal but you want to support. You can use a Boosty platform for donations. It offers such a opportunity. You can subscribe to page there where I have a lot of extra content, as this case with Patreon, but you also can donate from there. And during the live streams, you can use a super chat feature, by the way, on the Rumble. Super chat feature on the Rumble to highlight any topic you want, and also to donate to this project. And you can use a premium subscription gift card on the Rumble or on Patreon, by the way. You can, every time you purchase such a gift card is a $5 donation to this project, which is also, of course, a big deal. So there is many ways how you can support, dear friends. Links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And if I may, I will drop in YouTube chat link to my Rumble channel. In case you have a account on Rumble, subscribe to my channel, dear friends. Maybe you will use, I don't know, super chat feature. There, a link should be visible by now. And that's being said, it's already 1 hour and 20 minutes, dear friends, and there are a lot of news left. A lot of news left. Goodness me, man. But all the news are important, interesting, and my hope is, dear friends, that every time you watch my videos, you will know better about many topics, right, than before. That's my hope, and I want to believe that I'm doing quite okay job in this regard. And let's continue with the more news, dear friends. Well, there is no more Keir Starmer as a UK Prime Minister. He is officially resigned, and the so-called King of UK, whatever his freaking name is, Charles or something, approved this resignation. And you know what, dear friends, whenever there is a talk whenever British officials, UK officials are talking about democracy and freedom and this and that, I always ironizing that UK, by the way, formally is a monarchy and theocracy, right? Do you pay attention to that? That officially, actually, UK is a monarchy and a theocracy, because UK is led by king. And by the way, I'm a strong believer that British aristocracy, British ruling class, is extremely powerful force. Leading force, actually, when it comes to globalist clan. That's a whole different story. And King of UK, actually, is a head of Anglican Church, correct? So therefore, UK is somewhat theocracy too. Very interesting. Just a little nuance there. But anyways, by the way, Keir Starmer has resigned. His resignation was accepted by this so-called king and very same creature, whatever the freaking name is of that nobody, man, Charles or something. That Charles appointed or agreed to Andy Burnham to become a new prime minister. And so from now on, Andy Burnham is our new prime minister of UK, if that will change anything whatsoever. I mean, dear friends, if that will make any freaking changes. Nothing, right? Nothing gonna change, because I mean, actual decision makers in UK or any other Western country you can name, actual decision makers always were and will be in the shadows. And it literally does not matter who is a prime minister or president or chancellor or whomever, right? They are just the puppets of rich and powerful. That's all it is. And British citizens will find out this fairly soon, that it does not really matter who is a freaking prime minister, man. Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham, or Boris Johnson. They all are puppets, right? They all are freaking puppets, and all they do is globalist interests, totally ignoring interests of the people of UK. That's the truth. Soon, Chancellor of Germany, Merz, might join Keir Starmer in the ranks of a former leader of Germany, because he's extremely unpopular, you know, dear friends, isn't it? His ratings are around, I don't know, 13-15%, something like that. Extremely unpopular. And maybe this unpopularity is forcing Merz every now and then to say something that actually makes sense. Like, for example, he acknowledged that Germany is facing energy crisis and their subsequent economical crisis because of their refusal to buy Russian gas. Wow, man, wow. It only took like a couple of years, isn't it, to realize how dumb all of them are in the German leadership, right? That while cutting ties with Russia, they harm Germany in a way that enemies of Germany would dream about, right? But yet again, Merz will forget about adequacy tomorrow, right? And he will go on making some other crazy statements as he usually does, and that's why probably AfD is the most popular party in Germany, right? Alternative for Deutschland. It's a Deutschland, isn't it? Germans call it Deutschland. Why we say Germany? It's a Deutschland. So yes, Alternative for Deutschland is number one party right now, most popular, and who knows? Maybe they will have a next chancellor. Who knows, man? I mean, if Merz resigns now, of course, current ruling bloc CDU as CSU will put another one there. But if AfD will do well during the next elections, then who knows? Maybe they will actually have their own chancellor. But yet again, I said it many times before, by the way, that I do have a fear when it comes to these alternative parties in Europe, in Germany, France, UK, in some other countries, that maybe this is globalists are messing around, right? Maybe they are creating these fake alternatives to continue to keep control over their mindset of the people. Who knows what's going on? But what I noticed, dear friends, here in Russia, a number of commentators actually have high hopes that AfD will become a leading party in Germany and will form the government eventually. And some commentators here in Russia are hopeful that in that case, maybe relationships between Moscow and Berlin will actually improve significantly. Although, I don't know, man, maybe because I'm naturally extremely skeptical, or maybe it's not just a skepticism, but many indicators actually that can be seen out there if you want to. But I think AfD's leadership might further push relationships between Russia and Germany even further towards the corner. And you might disagree with me, but let me read to you some of the statements that I believe yesterday a leader of AfD, Alice Weidel, made. So she stated, with us, she meant AfD, there will be no accession of Ukraine to the EU or NATO. And many channels here in Russia took this phrase from Weidel and start talking about it a lot, that, oh, you see AfD, I mean, they have a adequate position and stuff. For God's sake, do you really need Alice Weidel to say that Ukraine never going to be member of NATO or even EU? Are you that stupid that you need Alice Weidel to tell you that Ukraine never going to be member of NATO or EU? How can anybody be that stupid? Honestly, I don't understand this. This statement of Weidel literally means nothing. Nothing. It's a water. In journalism, we call these kind of phrases that don't really have a weight in it, water. It's a water. It means nothing, right? But I have far more interesting statements that Weidel made very same time. Let me continue. So, with us, there will be no accession of Ukraine to EU or NATO, said Alice Maidan, leader of Alternative for Germany party, stating that the party will advocate for resolving the Ukraine conflict through peaceful negotiations. Yeah, okay. Therefore, and now look what she says after that. Therefore, we, Alternative for Germany, in the government will strive for a peace in Ukraine, and we will advocate for peaceful recognitions negotiations so that this unnecessary loss of the life finally ends. We do not want one-sided victory for any side. This is not the path to peace. It is the path to war. You see, we have to be very careful, man, when we are choosing, let's say, allies, because this statement from Weidel clearly indicates that she is a freaking Nazi, right? She is a freaking Nazi supporter, by the way. She is saying that, well, we don't want Russia to win, right? That's what she's saying. That she is against, and AFD is against Russia to win this war. So, I mean, when there is a war, one side wins, one side loses. That's how it is always, right? Always. So, what she's saying there. So, AFD, by the way, might be even worse for Russia and for relationships between Germany and Russia than these current idiots are from CDU, CSU, and so on. Because this statement of Weidel clearly indicates that she is a freaking Nazi supporter, probably granddaughter of a Nazi, German Nazi, SS Nazi scumbag or something like that, right? And she is saying that her AFD is against her Russian victory. Really? That's the statement that actually is interesting and important. She clearly indicates where they stand. So we will see, man. We will see. And I think it well might be AFD. It well might be AFD's government when Germany will finally move towards developing its own nuclear weapons, right? And SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation, today published information actually about this topic, about the possibility of Germany developing nuclear weapons. Well, it's not just SVR says that Germany is moving towards that direction, but SVR also says that NATO military experts also believe Germany will need a year to develop nuclear weapon. The Russian Foreign Intelligence Service press bureau reported Berlin is capable of independently producing the necessary fissile materials within 1 to 3 months and constructing a nuclear explosive device within a year without conducting full-scale tests, according to SVR statement. Given Germany's militaristic experience and their Chancellor Friedrich Merz's plans to once again make the German army the strongest in Europe, the current authorities may indeed be considering creating their own nuclear umbrella department, emphasized. And well, here I have to disagree with SVR because I think it well might be AFD, man, that will go for nuclear weapons. Because after all, AFD is a globalist too, man. AFD is a globalist project also, as it is the case with the Reform UK party in UK, as it is case with Marine Le Pen's party in France. These are globalist projects, by the way. If anybody believes that these are actually parties for the people and by the people, then sorry, man, I have, I don't know, man, 10,000 Everest mountains in my pocket to sell it to you. These are all freaking theater, by the way, that is being played before very our eyes. And unfortunately, so many people are failing to this theater, man, to this freak show, unfortunately. So it well might be, man, that it's a alternative for Germany. Parties, government will push Germany towards developing nuclear weapons. And when it comes to capabilities of Germany to actually build nuclear weapons, well, SVR is, I mean, I don't even need a report from SVR. I know perfectly well for a very long time that Germany is a member of countries that have this latent nuclear deterrent, which means they have expertise, technological and scientific knowledge to build nuclear weapons if they want to, and therefore, if order comes, German military-industrial complex, German scientists will have no much issue actually producing nuclear weapons. It's obvious. And SVR also shared today, dear friends, that this officially undeclared ambition of German political leadership to get their hands on nuclear weapons are making nervous some EU, officials and some neighbors of Germany, quite understandably, really. Right? Let me give you details on that. So, German authorities' intention to gain direct access to nuclear weapons is causing extreme concern in Europe, given the Berlin's revanchist sentiments. This was stated in a statement by Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, this press bureau. According to information received by SVR, the relevant ministers of one of their key NATO states are expressing concern about their active nuclear weapons-related research and development work being carried out in Germany. As the SVR noted, Berlin's Western allies acknowledge the scale of its current work in sensitive areas such as specialized material science, shockwave physics, and nuclear and neutron physics, which involves 13 national universities. These include the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, the Ruhr University of Bochum, the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich, the RWTH Aachen University, and the Technical University of Berlin. Practical experiments are being conducted at 6 research reactors operating at these centers. The statement emphasized NATO Brussels points to Germany's meticulousness and close interagency coordination in developing manufacturing methods and organizing the industrial production of high-energy explosive and electronic detonation systems. Key national military-industrial concerns are involved in this activity: Rheinmetall AG, Delft Stiftung GmbH, KNDS Group, and Humorex GmbH. These materials and equipment are regularly tested at their German ground forces testing grounds. Foreign Intelligence Service stated, and by the way, Germany, there is one way to deter Germany from acquiring nuclear weapons, right? And that's a force. And I don't think any European country gonna dare to go after Germany right now. Russia might, if Russian security services and their militaries will receive a green light to restore deterrent with the collective West, then of course Russian militaries might take out certain legit targets in Germany, but that will be a retaliation. We're not gonna go in a full-out war against Germany or any other country, by the way. In Europe, we don't have to, and we don't want to. Let's be clear on that. And the nuclear Germany, if anything, nuclear Germany is first and foremost threat to its European neighbors, right? Let's be clear on that too. And even though SVR didn't mention which European country is especially concerned with these developments, with this activization of research in nuclear weaponry in Germany, but I guess for sure this is Poland, right? For sure, man, this has to be Poland. Of course, nuclear armed Germany, same time, by the way, will be big concern for UK and France too, because they will lose, and for US too. In some ways, because they will use leverage over Germany, right? They will have a harder time to impose their will on Berlin if Germany actually has a capable army, one that is, especially one that is armed with freaking nuclear weapons, right? So all countries in the West will be concerned, once because they might lose tools of control of Germany, and others because, they are on a trajectory towards the war with Germany. And of course, in that case, I'm talking about Poland. I think in the next 10, 15 years, war between Poland and Germany is absolutely inevitable. They clearly are on the path towards the war. Just clearly, by the way, right? I see it very, very clearly based on all the indicators, all the information that there is out there, right, in open sources. And of course, Moscow will be concerned too. Don't get me wrong. Of course, Moscow will be concerned too if no matter whichever country going to gain nukes, because it's still a threat, right? But when it comes to this particular story, of course, this is a big deal. This is a big deal, first and foremost for NATO allies of Germany. And by the way, if AfD leadership will gain independence somehow, or let's say differently, if Germany one day will have a leadership that will not be controlled by globalists and will actually be in service of the German people, in that case, Berlin and Moscow might actually become allies, man. Not straight away, obviously, right? It will take a long time to restore trust, to restore connections, and so on. But if Germany is led by people that actually care about Germans and care about Germany, then I think Moscow will find ways to cooperate with such government, for sure. And dear friends, possible friendship or alliance between Russia and Germany is something that literally horrifies Anglo-Saxon elites. Horrifies. There was an attempt even, right? Putin, by the way, I might be critical of Putin for his restraint policies, but same time, by the way, he is obviously heavyweight in politics, on geopolitical scale. He is a heavyweight, man, no doubt. And he actually attempted, right, to create this triangle. If you remember, by the way, when Germany was led by Schröder, France was led by Chirac, isn't it? Or Mitterrand. And Putin was Russian president, and there was actually such a good chance at that point, 20 years ago now. There was such a good opportunity, by the way, that Putin, Schröder, and Chirac created, right, to build this triangle that will, if successful, right, if triangle actually happened, if process was finalized, then, well, we would be in a very different world now, by the way, much more safer world, right? And Anglo-Saxon elites will no longer be dominant force, unchallenged dominant force, right? In this world, would be in a better place, like million times better place. But unfortunately, Anglo-Saxon elites spotted the processes straight away. They deployed their tools that they had in both in Germany and France. They tried to do the same in Russia, by the way. They failed in Russia to implement totally puppet regime, but unfortunately they succeeded in Germany and France. And after Schröder and Chirac, France was then led by Sarkozy, by the way, freaking clown, right? Freaking clown. Sarkozy, then Hollande, then Macron, man. What a scumbags, right? And in Germany, you had Angela Merkel, globalist puppet, and then even worse ones, right? Now you have Scholz. So Anglo-Saxon elites actually intercepted these processes of building some sort of connections and alliances between Moscow and Berlin, between Moscow, Berlin, and Paris. But you know what? If one day Germany and also France are led by governments that are for people, for nation, in that case, this kind of alliance might actually happen. It will take decades, obviously, but this is doable, man. This is doable, and I think this is in interests of everybody, right? This will create a security architecture in this world that will keep this world safe, in safer place. But anyways, man, let's continue with some other news. And we have this reporter from Politico that European Union intends to revise its own 21st sanctions package due to protests in Greece. According to publications, some provisions of their package related to restrictions on Russian energy resources and their operations of Austrian bank Raiffeisen do not align with their economic interests of the EU itself. And well, let them revise their own sanctions packages, by the way. Every new sanctions package that you can come up with, there is more and more harm to European economies, right? Because they sanctioned Russia, literally, I mean, they sanctioned everything here in Russia, right? And that's why lately they are more going after individuals, right? And there is 150 million individuals, by the way, here in Russia. So they have an unending opportunity to come up with a new wave of sanctions literally every other week. And they can sanction every week 10,000 more Russian citizens, and then 20,000 more Russian citizens, and then 100,000. And they can mess around this sanctions topic for another, I don't know, man, 5 years if they want to. Because when it comes to Russian segments, Russian businesses, they already sanctioned everything, right? There is nothing else to sanction, man. Today, going to sanction oxygen that is generated by Russian forest, or what they going to do? It's insane. Every new sanctions package is a harm done to Europe, and that is it, really. Russia already proved, by the way, thanks to economical bloc of Russian government, obviously, Russia already proved that it can well deal with this 30,000 plus sanctions, right, that West imposed already, and will deal perfectly well with another, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 100,000. As I said, man, they can come up with 150 million sanctions if they will go and sanction every single citizen here in Russia, right? We can deal with this for sure. Meanwhile, we also have this reporter from TASS News Agency that Europe risks starting their heating season with record low gas reserves, and you guessed why that is. Maybe that has something to do with very, very exact sanctions that these European bureaucrats are playing with. Of course, there is a direct connection there. Let me give you some details on this. Very important topic, isn't it? Because winter is coming. So the rate of gas injections into underground storage facilities in Europe in July was among the lowest on record, threatening countries in the region with a shortage of molecules by the start of heating season. Shortages basically might happen during their heating season, according to TASS News Agency's calculations based on data from gas infrastructure Europe. So details are that average rate of replenishment of underground gas storage facilities in EU countries in July is at one of the lowest levels since the 2011. Lower was only in 2020 and 2024. Given these figures, Europe could fill its storage facilities to only 70 to 75% by the traditional start of autumn-winter period, which would be the absolute minimum for the start of the heating season in history. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? That's quite interesting. There might be record low volume of gas, by the way, in underground storage facilities in Europe. During this heating season, which is let's be real, man, which is quite unfortunate actually, because you guess who gonna be harmed with the possible shortages that might emerge there. And I know some members of our community might raise the question why Russia is still selling gas to Europeans, transferring gas to Europeans, and helping, therefore, fill up these underground gas storage facilities also. And of course, I'm against transferring anything of strategical matter to hostile states, obviously. But same time, by the way, when it comes to winter heating season, it's ordinary people, right, that gonna be hit first and foremost, right? Elites in the West, they're not gonna feel nothing, isn't it? It's ordinary people, by the way, and therefore we don't have no beef with ordinary people, isn't it? So therefore, it is unfortunate news that these idiots that are in charge of European countries are endangering potentially millions and millions of ordinary people in Europe that might face extreme hike in the prices, energy prices, including heating prices. And there are some households might be even forced to turn off their heating during the winter, which is crazy, right? But yet again, those people, man, in Europe, they should think better, right? Who they are supporting and who they are allowing to be their representatives, right? And to be in a position of power. You know? So much news left, by the way. Goodness me. Let me check how long is this update now. It's almost 2 hours, and I still have, I don't know, man, maybe dozen of news on some important topics. And so let's continue, dear friends. Many thanks to all of you, dear friends, for your attention, especially to members of our community that are here from the beginning of the live stream. I understand that not everybody has so much time in their hands to follow entire live stream, so that's why I'm going to start dropping parts of this live stream, as a separate videos. I will divide video in separate parts, 2-3 parts after the stream, and publish them like that. So maybe, I don't know, man, maybe just 10 people will find it useful and will watch it, maybe 50, maybe 100, but at least it will be useful for some members of community. That's the already good thing, right? Anyways, let's continue with some other news. And Middle East, of course, we have to talk about Middle East. We have an update that US conducted yet another wave of strikes on Iran, mostly on the southern regions of Iran. Command centers, according to SATCOM, command centers, coastal surveillance facilities, and air defense assets, naval assets, missile and drone sites were targeted by US militaries. Iran is, of course, retaliating big time, by the way, very strongly, right? Probably, even US militaries are shocked how devastating the Iran's retaliatory strikes are. And there are so many images out there on the internet, isn't it, about tremendous damage that is done to US military assets throughout the region. Right now, you can see on your screen, dear friends, satellite imagery released by Iranian state media that shows damage to their electrical substation at their Batelco data center in Bahrain. And Iran claims that this facility functions as a US military command and control and their AI data processing hub. Their imagery appears to show damage to power substation, while the data center building itself appears to have remained intact. But if a data center has no power, by the way, then it's dead quite effectively, right? You need a lot of power to run data center, to run cooling system in a data center, and so on. Important strike there, but there are more. Yesterday, I reported, dear friends, that as a result of one of the Iranian strikes on Jordan, for example, massive warehouses were destroyed, where US was hiding its transport helicopters, and according to some reports, up to 20 Black Hawk helicopters were either totally destroyed or damaged as a result of that single strike alone. And right now you can see on your screen additional imagery that was satellite imagery that was shared on internet, which demonstrates damage to US military assets in Jordan again. And their damage is quite significant, by the way. Entire warehouses are just totally decimated, right? And God knows what was in those warehouses. Due to this very harsh retaliatory strikes from Iran, as it was expected, US militaries are losing now not just military assets, equipment, but also military personnel. SETCOM acknowledged that another serviceman was killed, and then one serviceman was designated as a missing, but eventually that another one was also designated as a killed. Overall, in past several days, alone officially 4 US servicemen died during this Iran's retaliatory strikes. But Trump, US president, while commenting on the matter, stated that maybe actually more US servicemen were killed because during their latest Iranian retaliatory strikes, even though there was a speculation that either 1 or 2 US militaries were killed, Trump said that it could be 3. Actually, I can give you a short video on that.
Tonight, and we did that in honor of the probably 3. It's probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots.
So you can see there the difference. Trump himself claims that well, it could be 3. So in that case, total number of casualties just in past 48 hours. 48 to 72 hours could be 5, right? And this is what Pentagon or US administration acknowledges officially. There are many military experts that are sharing opinion that are giving the scale of Iran's retaliatory strikes and the imagery that is available out there, casualties might be actually significantly higher, although it's all speculations, isn't it? We cannot know for sure. I mean, we just cannot know. And SETCOM is only confirming 4, but Trump says 5. Basically, Trump says that yesterday or during the latest attacks, maybe 3 military personnel was killed there. 2 was acknowledged before, prior to that. So that makes overall number of death 5, right? Up to 5. Dozens probably were wounded. But yet again, US militaries, for understandable reasons, by the way, of course, are not in a hurry to share actual information with the public. And I'm not going to be too critical about it. All militaries all over the world, by the way, are acting in the same way. No one wants to share information about its losses. It's no one military in the world does that. And US not going to be exception, obviously. Also, we have a reporter on the pages of Washington Post, according to which a report that says US prepares for a full-scale war with Iran following the death of American service members. And of course, Washington Post lies, by the way. They are paving the way, kind of preparing the ground, brainwashing the people, or preparing the mindset of the people for further escalation with Iran, for a full-scale war with Iran. And they are using to justify these preparations or the war itself with the losses of US military personnel. They are playing on the sensitive notes, right? They are playing on emotions of their people. In reality, of course, the US is preparing for the next phase of the war with Iran. Of course, they do. I said it even before memorandum of understanding was agreed between their sides, way before that. And I think, and now many other commentators out there on internet are on the same page, that the next phase of escalation will be launched late autumn, early winter, most likely, when weather conditions will be less demanding than it is during the summertime, right? And plus, US and its allies will use their time until launch of next phase of escalation, which will include ground invasion, to build up their military presence in a region and to produce as much long-range weaponry as they possibly can, right? So, of course, US is preparing for a war, but the reason is very different than Washington Post paints there, that, well, because US militaries died, now US is gearing up for a full-scale war. US was always about full-scale war, man, right? This memorandum of understanding was nonsense from their beginning, always. Also, in terms of when it comes to US preparations for the war, I have said many times before, dear friends, that US is deploying more and more assets towards the Middle East, right? And tries to do so in as much secrecy as possible. Although there is satellites, right? Russian satellites, Chinese satellites, they're going to have a difficult time, right, to deploy assets without being spotted. And Iran, as you can see, dear friends, based on Iran's precise strikes on military assets of US, Iran also has access to this satellite intelligence, clearly, right? They know where to hit. But nevertheless, US continues to deploy more assets, and well, finally, even New York Times acknowledges that, right? They come up with an article claiming that US is deploying additional F-16 and F-35 squadrons towards the Middle East, probably again towards Jordan, maybe Israel, but only so much weapon systems can be stationed in Israel, by the way, right? Jordan is no longer a safer place as Pentagon was thinking it was, right? And the latest Iran's retaliatory strikes clearly demonstrated that. And I think it's only a matter of time when Iran will go after US assets on Israeli territory too. Because they're gonna do it, man. Iran gonna go after US military assets on Israeli territory too, man. I'm quite sure about it. Although simultaneously they will continue eliminating US military assets as much as possible throughout the region, in GCC countries, obviously, and just everywhere they can reach. Also, Trump once again claimed that US is in control of Strait of Hormuz, and he basically called everybody to go there and move around Strait of Hormuz. It's free, right? It's free, and it's under US control. So US gives you a green light. Just do it. And I don't know, surprisingly, dear friends, there are still some idiots out there among these maritime companies and among captains of the vessels themselves that are right now stationed around the Strait of Hormuz, that are actually taking these statements from US seriously and are risking with the lives of their crews, the staff members, and their own lives, right? And well, another one tried to do so, another vessel, or captain of the vessel tried to do so in past 12 hours, and well, crew of that vessel learned hard way that was a big mistake. It was struck. Obviously, it was struck off coast of Oman, right? While attempting to move through Strait of Hormuz without cooperating with the Iranian side. How stupid is that, man? I mean, how many vessels gonna face some surprises, unwanted surprises in the Strait of Hormuz, to everyone to realize that it is not freaking safe to move around without cooperating with the Iranian side? Why they are risking, man? Why they are risking the lives of their crew members, and also with whatever goods they have on board? I don't know. I really don't understand this, man. Meanwhile, dear friends, there is speculations already out there that this is already, and some experts actually claim that this is the next phase of escalation between US and Iran. This is the next phase of war, actually, full-scale war and stuff. And I'm skeptical of it. I said from the beginning, this is just a tit-for-tat exchange between the sides that went a bit too far, right? I don't think US was planning that this tit-for-tat exchange of fire with Iran will last for more than a week now, right? But it did last because Iran is not willing to de-escalate. It's Iran that is not willing to de-escalate because Iranian militaries, Iranian security services have no reason to stop targeting US assets throughout the region, right? Because they know any pause will only be used by their enemies to have some break, to rearm, reorganize, and then to start again, right? But US wants break. Iranian militaries and security services may don't want to break, but US definitely wants because they are wasting long-range weapon systems that they already have an extreme deficit of, right? And as time goes by, Pentagon and Washington, they administration in Washington, in White House, and the Pentagon will become ever more desperate to end this tit-for-tat exchange, at least for the time being, because they literally don't know what to strike, and they are going after civilian infrastructure because literally they don't know what to strike. Iranians already demonstrated they are good, man, in hiding their military assets. Iran is massive. It's a massive country, right? There is a lot of places that you can hide whatever you want. And US is struggling with the targeting data. US is struggling with their designating the targets. Therefore, probably they are deploying Palantir AI or whatever AI they are deploying. This AI is designating everything as a legit target. And already there were numerous reports about hospitals being targeted, about energy infrastructure being targeted, about purely civilian infrastructure was struck, schools included. So US don't even know what to strike, right? But they have to strike something because Iran is not stopping. And they feel like they have to strike something, right? And their bombing campaign continues. US is wasting this long-range weapons that they're already struggling, right, with in terms of stockpiles. And that's why US is looking for a temporary de-escalation again. And we have this report: Iran's foreign ministry has received proposals to de-escalate tensions with the United States. What a surprise. What a surprise. Let me give you details, by the way. Or there is not much details, actually, but whatever Artis has shared, Iran has received ceasefire proposals from the United States, said Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Ismail Baghei. They are proposals, we have received them, but let me not go into details. He responded to a question on the matter of briefing. Mediators are working to diffuse tensions and arose between Washington and Tehran earlier this month, diplomat added. So, well, I guess Washington once again asked Islamabad, Pakistani leadership, or maybe Qatari leadership, Doha, or I don't know, maybe Turkey, someone, somebody help me. That's the position that Washington is right now. Please, somebody help me. And they created this situation for themselves, isn't it? They created this situation for themselves, man. How stupid is that? But yes, they are desperate now for a temporary pause in hostilities. And, well, even though Iranian military probably will be against holding fire, decisions obviously are dependent on supreme leader of Iran and their political leadership, and maybe they will take another pause, maybe, right? Anyways, Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, stated that Tehran is actually open for negotiations. Negotiations with the United States should continue even if chances of success are only 10%, stated Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, and therefore, yet again, we cannot know for certain, but there is a clearly probability that soon we might see some sort of a de-escalation or pause in these hostilities, because, as I said, next phase of a war will be launched, I think, towards the end of autumn, early winter. I don't think Pentagon actually intended to get engaged in this quite prolonged tit-for-tat exchange that is happening now, like 10 days, isn't it, straight? Something like that. But US is engaged in that. They launch attacks, and then Iran just did not stop. And the American side feels like they have to continue attack. At the same time, they're counting the missiles, right, that they are running out of. JSSMs and Tomahawks and everything else, whatever they use. But there is a probability, of course, that there will be some pause, even though Iranian militaries probably would not be happy about it. But, well, decision is up to Supreme Leader of Iran and political leadership, obviously. And, Abbas Araghchi also went to say that he personally have not yet met with the new Supreme Leader of Iran, Muqtada Khamenei. I don't think, aside from very few people, anyone has seen him, Abbas Araghchi stated. And, I guess this is true for security reasons, obviously. Muqtada Khamenei's location is kept strict secret, and he is only meeting with their people in if it's absolutely necessary for safety reasons, right? Of course, Muqtada Khamenei will have a means how to deliver orders and the messages to the government officials, obviously, but for safety reasons, of course, security services will recommend him to stay away from public eyes as much as possible. And also nuance difference. Yesterday, isn't it, during big community chat, or day before yesterday, I shared information that TASS News Agency, I believe, published, according to which first official contact with the foreign leaders that Muqtada Khamenei might have could be with the President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. And today, a number of media outlets reported that Peskov, a press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov commented on that and said that Moscow is definitely open for such a meeting, right? And I think now we have even more reasons, or at least I have even more reasons to believe that Muqtada Khamenei is actually here in Russia. I think he was treated from injuries on Russian territory by Russian doctors. I think he's recovering. He feels probably well enough right now, and is getting more and more active, engaged in processes, and maybe actually his first appearance in the public will happen in Moscow during his meeting with the President of the Russian Federation. Vladimir Putin. Makes sense if Khamenei will stay in Russia. If Khamenei, for safety reasons, will stay in Russia as long as there is a war in a place, it is absolutely unnecessary for him to risk his life and then go back to Iran. This is not medieval times, by the way. I mean, people will understand. Iran cannot have a new supreme leader every other week, right? And Iranian society will be absolutely supportive, I believe, of idea that Khamenei is in some safe place somewhere that neither US, neither Israel can get to him, right? Or any other enemies that Iranian people have. Anyways, we will see. We will see. My guess is that Khamenei is in Russia, and his first public appearance, first public meeting with a foreign leader will be between him and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, US President, according to CNN, is greenlighting Saudi Arabia to go for enrichment of uranium without stricter safeguards, actually, in her place. Of course, this information makes nervous everybody in the region of Middle East. Not so much Iran, but Turkey first and foremost, Israel too, and not so much Iran because Iran already mastered entire cycle of enrichment, right? They know it all, and if Saudi goes nuclear, which will take quite a lot of time, by the way. Saudi Arabia is nowhere near to capabilities that are necessary to build nuclear weapons. But if they will move in that direction, of course, others will do the same. First and foremost, Turkey, by the way. Turkey will go nuclear anyways, I think. Next countries that will join nuclear club, in my personal opinion, is potentially Iran, of course, potentially Iran, Germany, for sure, Germany, Turkey, possibly, Turkey, Poland, and giving their who is in power in Brazil and what kind of relationship Brazil has with US. Brazil might actually become also nuclear power in next, let's say, decade or two. And yeah, potentially Saudi Arabia, UAE, if UAE even survives as an entity that we know it right now. So these are the countries that actually I think gonna join nuclear club. Japan, obviously. Japan is also out there. Let's see. Meanwhile, according to Haaretz, Israeli propaganda outlet, Israel delays recognition of Armenian genocide due to pressure from Azerbaijan. Netanyahu intervened in the Knesset's voting process. Knesset is a parliament in Israel. Knesset's voting process regarding the recognition of Armenian genocide in the Ottoman Empire as an official state position. The vote has now been postponed until October, and this information clearly indicates how close the ties between Azerbaijan and the Israeli ruling class is, and how close the cooperation is between intelligence services of these two sides. Definitely something that Iran will pay close attention to, and many others. And Azerbaijan definitely is one of the directions from which Iran and a number of other countries can be threatened. And everyone should pay attention, obviously. Everyone should pay attention to it. And also, I mean, by doing this, by this gesture, Israel is, of course, sending message to Ankara that, maybe this is not the best time to escalate with each other. Eventually, Israel and Turkey gonna go on for a war. I mean, they are on trajectory of the war, but not immediately, right? So maybe this is also attempt on Israeli part to somewhat de-escalate with Turkey. And dear friends, China, meanwhile, calls on international community and all peace-loving people in Japan to urge Japanese authorities to abandon remilitarization and intention to possess nuclear weapons. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian stated about it. And yes, man, I just said, isn't it? Japan is one of those countries that might actually acquire nuclear weapons in next decade or two, and well, I guess Chinese leadership thinks so too. And of course, I have to mention this, by the way, even though I personally did not watch even a single game during this so-called World Cup in football. But yesterday there was a final, Spain and Argentina, and Spaniards won. Spain won this so-called World Cup. Okay, congratulations to Spanish team, and all the fans that supported Spain. And that is it, dear friends, when it comes to news segment. When it comes to news segment of today's program, I mean, 2 hours and 20 minutes, man. Quite a lot of news, isn't it? And now, dear friends, now let's have a community chat a bit, because there was a super chats, there was comments from PayPal, and if I may, I will react on it. First and foremost, I will react on recommendations from Christopher about some interesting videos that he come across on different channels on YouTube. Thank you very much, Christopher, for your donations through PayPal and the recommendations. And dear friends, if you are interested to see work of Russian Ta-52 Alligator attack helicopter that destroys NATO air defense systems, well, you can see this exclusive military footage on the Murat San channel. You can literally pause the video and search on YouTube if you want to. You can, I'm quite sure you can read names of the channels. Also, and Ka-52, dear friends, if you ask me, I think Ka-52 Alligator is one of the best attack helicopters right now in the world, for sure. You might say, well, you are pro-Russian, and therefore, of course, you will say so. Yes, I'm pro-Russian. Of course, I'm Russian citizen, by the way, so how else? But I'm also objective while saying that Ka-52 is definitely one of the best, if not the best, attack helicopters in the world. Also, Christopher is commenting that Russian. Hello, Levaner. Here's the video that you might like to look at the Russian army that is unstoppable. Ukrainian volunteers are completely surrounded. Close quarter combat. Video can be seen on YouTube channel Murat San. Also on Murat San, this video, dear friends. If you are very sensitive, this video might be too much for you. But if you can take it, then it's a close combat footage. So just be cautious. But I have seen so many videos of that, man. And, it is definitely difficult stuff to watch. But if you want to see what close combat looks like nowadays, that's the video there. And also Christopher shared with us a recommendation that a new Russian rifle downs drones with their magnetic technology. Oh, that's interesting. Magnetic technology. Video can be seen on YouTube channel called Fantastic Places. A new Russian rifle is being demonstrated in a video there. Okay, by the way, that's interesting. Magnetic technology. Isn't microwave stuff, something like that? Good, man. Good. Hopefully, we will have more and more weapons that can easily deal or neutralize incoming drones. Let's hope so. Thank you very much, Christopher, for your recommendations and for your donations and support for my work and this media project of mine. And dear friends, let's continue with some other super chats. So there was There was a premium subscription gift card from Viper, which is a $5 donation, dear friends. So thank you very much, Viper, for your donation to this project, and there are premium subscription gift card on Rumble. And there is a Scooby's super chat. Thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat and dollar donation. And Scooby's commenting, didn't USA just run a campaign to take back control of Iraq before restarting with Iran? This is from yesterday. Okay. And yeah, yesterday I did answer to this, but yeah, it is true. It is true. US did run the campaign to consolidate its influence on Baghdad right before they launched this latest phase of escalation. So then let me see this one, by the way. This one definitely new. No, this one is from yesterday too. Ань, did you send? Okay, and where is the today's one? One's there. Okay, I see it now. Okay, I can see now. This one today's, right? Fine. No. So thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chat today and dollar donation. And Scooby is commenting more info about Nidish's NGO comment, please. Nidish, you see, Scooby is asking you to share some more information about NGO. I guess in the chat you had a communication between each other. I mean, members of our community, you shared some information, and Scooby is asking more info to be shared if you can. Also, during the stream, dear friends, there was donation from Andrew through PayPal. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your $365 donation, or $5 donation, let me say. Keep going, idiots, kill each other, destroy everything you build on both countries, Russia and Ukraine, and whole world will laugh at you and will make money on your stupid war. Sorry, and well, what can I say? What can I say? Well, unfortunately, we allow Western ruling class to provoke, to brainwash so many of our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, and then to provoke war between us. So we are losing. I mean, we are losing. Western ruling class is laughing at us, and I don't know about the rest of the world, but I don't think the rest of the world is laughing, by the way. It's a tragedy, so no good people will laugh about it, but Western elites definitely are laughing about it, for sure. For sure. But we are where we are, isn't it, now? So we have to finalize this special military operation and save as many people as possible and secure Russian Federation as much as possible. That's where we are. Thank you for sharing your opinion, angry opinion, but nevertheless, you know, I can understand your anger, by the way, for sure. Unfortunately, we allow Western ruling class to be successful in the brainwashing of our brothers and sisters out there in Ukraine. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them. And eventually we end up in this civil war inside the Russian world, which is a tragedy, of course. There was also more super chats on Rumble from Scooby, Wayward Husband, and Nautilus K. Stouter. Let's start with the Scooby's comments. So thank you very much, Scooby, for your super chats and their donations. And Scooby is commenting, economic depression. Does Europe fall apart politically as they bicker over limited resources, or try to double down on military spending and even draft people to war? Well, whenever any ruling class in the world, in any country, is facing some existential challenges, they always go for a foreign enemy, right? Way they keep people busy is generating, demonizing foreign powers, and they're basically going after militarization, and they're restricting their rights domestically of the people. Europe experienced that on several occasions, actually, right? So it's not going to be anything new. Of course, Europe will go for militarization and potentially war with Russia. This way, they will manage to impose restrictions on the societies, because it's a war, right? They can justify anything. It's a war. So they can justify anything. Most active groups of people that are young people, mostly 25, 45, those people, they will round up and send to the battlefield to die, right? This is one of the ways how Europeans are going to deal with the situation, because current ruling class in Europe is absolutely unable to implement the policies that are necessary for the European countries. They just can't do it. So only way they can preserve themselves in a position of power is to focus on foreign threat, provoke a war, and then deal with the protesting mass inside their countries, while sending these most active members of the society on the battlefield to die. That's what happened during the First World War, by the way. You think, honestly, man, I mean, the UK, British royalties, British ruling class, British aristocracy get rid of most active protester class with the First World War. They killed millions of those young people, right, that were capable of anything. And they preserved themselves. That's what British ruling class, British aristocracy did during the First World War. They sacrificed literally like 2 million Brits. How many Brits died, by the way? 2 million? More than 1 million for sure, right? And for what exactly? Only outcome, visible outcome, is preservation of aristocracy and its powers. So yes, they will go for a war. They will go for militarization, and they will go for a war. And that's why it is absolutely necessary European societies to wake up, because until it's just too late, because it's them that gonna be sacrificed, man. These ordinary Europeans that are in a deep sleep, majority. I mean, of course, there is an informed minority, but it's such tiny minority that it unfortunately cannot really influence much on European scale. Also, Wayward, thank you very much, Scooby, for your donation and commentary. Also, Wayward, her husband, is commenting. I wonder if some of the people around Putin who keep talking about this nonsense of their spirit of Alaska are on their payroll of the West. I do not trust Kirill Dmitriev. Well, of course, I cannot say that anybody is on the payroll of the Western ruling class or the secret services, because you need to have evidences of that, right? All I can hope is that Russian counterintelligence services are doing their job, right? That's all I can say about this matter, that Russian security services are doing their job, counterintelligence services. What I think is that there is a certain group of people in Russian elites that own everything they have to Western elites, by the way, because these elites, this oligarchic class, right, and their political, many figures in the politics, they have their positions and their everything else because they've been chosen during the 90s even, right? During the Yeltsin era. They've been handpicked, basically, right? By Yeltsin's family, by whatever forces were manipulating with the Yeltsin at the time, right? Western forces. And of course, these Western forces were picking people that had some pro-Western takes, pro-Western, wanted to be acknowledged in the West, received in the West, because it is easier to manipulate with such people, right? And that's why in Russian elites, a significant portion is absolutely pro-Western, even now. Even now, by the way, right? When Western ruling class clearly demonstrated their attitude towards Russian people and Russia. That's what is happening. And Kirill Dmitriev, I think, is one of those people that out of, I don't know, man, out of naivety or whatever, but still believes that there is something good in American ruling class with which he's in contact and tries to build some bridges, right, together with Ushakov, with Putin. I would not say this is like he's on the payroll of anybody, but he's just pro-American, man, right? He's pro-Westerner and pro-American, right? He sees a better future for Russia in cooperation with US. And you know what? I see the same, but not with the current American ruling class. Only when America is reclaimed by US citizens, right? I said many times before that I see no reason why Russia and US should be hostile to each other. It makes no sense, literally makes no sense, right? This confrontation is absolutely artificial, generated by Western ruling class. It's harmful for both, for US and for Russia. And so if one day American people, citizens of US society will manage to make necessary changes in the countries, in their own country, demolish this corrupt political, economical system that they have and build something adequate, something that will work for people, right? If they manage to replace these corrupt elites that they have right now with decent human beings at that point, for sure, we should try our best to build bridges with that America, that new America. But current one, that is led by this corrupt so-called elites, so-called ruling class that only cares about their own dominance and then nothing else, and whatever sick ideas they have, we cannot build bridges with them. We just cannot. It's just impossible. That's my strong belief. But Dmitriev probably believes that we can build this with these ones too. That's where I have to disagree with him. And not possible. It's just not possible, man. Right? It is what it is. But I don't think he's on the payroll of anybody. I mean, he's a rich, very rich individual, right? He himself can be called, maybe not necessarily oligarch, but he is a filthy rich, by the way. I mean, money is not really an option for him, or not really something for him. So therefore, Western ruling class knows how to manipulate people without necessarily keeping them on a payroll. Of course, they will have some people on a payroll, Western secret services, for sure, but they have other means of manipulation too, right? And yet again, I mean, this not necessarily, I mean, what is the right word? This attitude, strained attitude from Russian elites towards the Western ruling class is built in these elites, right? Because these elites were created in the 90s. In the 90s, when Russia was basically run by the West. Objectively speaking, man, Yeltsin was a freaking clown, right? He was running nothing. Western ruling class was running the show at the time. So, Also, Wayward is commenting, if Putin still refuses to confront the West directly, then he seriously needs to up Russia's game in asymmetric warfare against them. He needs to take their missile muscle off on his security services. I mean, you are saying that if we don't go for deterrent to be restored with a hash force, then we should go asymmetrical, and maybe that's what he's going to do. And maybe we'll go asymmetrical. That might actually bring the results. I mean, asymmetrical warfare can be very effective. For sure. And who knows, by the way, successful Iranian strikes on US assets in the Middle East, maybe that's the part of Russian asymmetrical warfare or asymmetrical response. Maybe we are providing Iranians with their exact satellite intelligence about location of this or that US assets, and Iranians are extremely successful eliminating those assets, right? Maybe I'm just speculating now. Maybe that's the part of Russian asymmetrical warfare. Could be case, or maybe not. We just cannot know that. But I definitely understand your point there, 100%. If we are not going to go for escalate directly, then at least we should go for asymmetrical, right? And also Nautilus K. Stouter commented, and let me read it for you. Thank you very much, Nautilus K. Stouter, for your super chat and the $20 donation. And Nautilus is commenting, it's interesting for me to get an unfiltered view from a Russian citizen. Great channel. Oh, thank you very much for your kind words, Nautilus, and for your donation. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I mean, that's what I ever promised, right, to community, to be direct and open and real, right? That's what I do, really. I try my best to prepare informative programs, and when it comes to sharing my personal takes, my personal opinions, I'm sharing what I actually think. I'm not messing around, not playing. I'm just real. So I'm glad that this realness is being appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all, Scooby, Waywarder, Nautilus. Thank you all for super chats and your donations and your commentary. Thank you. And dear friends, there was also super chats. There was a donation from Christopher, two donations actually from Christopher, and recommendations. Hello, everyone. Here is a video that you might like to see. Christopher is writing, Russian troops storm bunker and discover NATO surprises. Oh, I guess Russian militaries capture some NATO equipment. This video can be seen on YouTube channel called Fantastic Places. Thank you for sharing, Christopher, and your donation. And also, Christopher is giving us an update on interesting video that can be seen on Military Update about video from Ukrainian army cameras that probably were captured by Russian forces and depicted battles in Bakhmut. Remember Bakhmut fights, dear friends? How horrendous that battle was for Bakhmut, and I guess this channel, Military Update, received videos of fights during that Bakhmut operation, and it is available now on this channel. Thank you very much, Christopher, for sharing with us. information about this interesting stuff that you are coming across different channels. Thank you. And also, Wayward is commenting, is Putin going to sit and watch while Finland, Germany, or the Baltic states develop nuclear weapons? They have stated openly how they want to destroy Russia. That's an existential threat to Russia. And well, I mean, Wayward, everybody is asking the same question, basically. Everybody is asking what Putin is going to do, how he will try to restore deterrent with the collective West, or if he will even try to do so. And no one has no answer. Literally nobody has any idea what Putin is going to do. Will he try to restore deterrent with green light Russian military and security services to take some necessary steps, deterrent to be restored and the Western ruling class to be kept away from Russia? Or he will choose some other options? I mean, literally nobody knows. Literally nobody knows. Pressure, although pressure is rising on Putin, because if until now, until lately at least, let's say this way, mostly pressure was growing on Putin, political pressure from the society that was not okay with the restrained policy that Moscow was implementing in regards to Western ruling class, NATO member states that were directly engaged in this war against Russian people. Then now Russian significant damage is being done to Russian businesses, right? Not a fatal damage, but significant harm, significant damage, significant losses were inflicted on Russian businesses too. And obviously, it makes sense if we will think that now pressure going to increase on Putin from business, from economical side too, right? From those very businessmen that are losing a lot of assets, right? And I don't know. I mean, yet again, I cannot know what Putin is going to do, but pressure is there. Pressure is there for sure. And I mean, everybody is wondering what kind of decisions he will make. You know, I already shared my opinion that I'm quite skeptical that he will authorize Russian military and security services to restore deterrent with the collective West. But I hope I am wrong on that. You know, same time I'm saying that I hope I'm wrong on that, and he will actually authorize militaries and securities to restore deterrent, and they will not take long before I mean militaries and securities before they will actually put Western ruling class in its place. It would not take too long, man, and they will do the job. But as of now, I mean, honestly, it is anybody's guess what Putin's plans are. I mean, I don't know. No one knows, really. I mean, except Putin and maybe a few people in the closest inner circle of his. And that's it. But everybody is asking very same questions, right? How longer Putin will tolerate this? Will he do something? What he might do? Why he is not doing anything until now? And there's so many questions, but we don't really have answers. Thank you for donation, Christopher, and thank you for interesting question and donation, Wayward. Thank you. And there was also this super chat from Wayward. Once again, thank you, Wayward. And Wayward is commenting, as long as US exists, Germany will not be allowed to be friend with Russia, no matter who wins power in Germany. I would not pin my hopes on anyone in Germany seeing their lifeline. Well, of course, Washington and London will try their best and use whatever leverage, whatever tools they have inside Germany and outside of Germany to keep this country away from Russia, because they are afraid of Russian-German alliance like death. Ruling class in UK and ruling class in US afraid of Russian-German potential alliance. Even more if France will join this group, like they are afraid death, man. So they will definitely do whatever they can to keep these countries away from each other, and if they will manage, then or they will even try to provoke confrontation between them, and that's exactly what they do. Unfortunately, Germany is one of the leading countries when it comes to hostilities against Russian people. I mean, I don't understand how this can be, but because Germany controlled by globalists and because the British ruling class is a leading force among globalists, they are manipulating Berlin to be as hostile towards Russia as it can. That's what it is. I want to believe that many Germans, maybe even majority, understand perfectly well that it's in nobody's interest, either in Germany or Russia, to be hostile towards each other. But German leadership is a whole different story, of course. Thank you very much for sharing, Wayward, and for your donation. And there was also 2 more super chats, also from Wayward. As long as the US exists, Germany will not be. I already commented on that, but another one is, according to news, UAE is coming up as their potential buyer for Turkey's S-400 system. Does Russia and Iran have a strategic partnership? Why is Putin allowing this sale when it will impact Iran? And I know there is 2 countries, isn't it? UAE and Qatar, that is being discussed as a potential buyers of Turkish S-400 made by Russia. And Wayward, honestly, I have some doubts that Moscow will greenlight Turkey to sell its S-400 to UAE. There might be all sorts of speculations on the internet, but I find it difficult to believe that Moscow will actually greenlight Turkey to transfer S-400 to UAE. And without Moscow's authorization, Ankara cannot transfer S-400 to anybody. They need Russia's consent for that, right? Because I mean, it's even technically impossible to give it to someone without Russia's consent, because it's not just Russia did not just sell S-400, isn't it? There is a maintenance work that is done by Russian specialists. There is updates in the software that is done by Russian specialists. So without Moscow's consent, you cannot even operate this S-400 system, right? Nothing to be said about giving to someone. And honestly, I want to believe that Moscow will never greenlight transfer of the system to UAE, because exactly as you mentioned, Russia and Iran are strategical partners. Qatar is a different story. I think Moscow will have, neither Moscow, neither Iran will have much issue if Doha will receive, if Qatar will receive Russian S-400. But UAE, I have not seen no reports from credible sources, at least in Russian segment of internet, that will claim that UAE is receiving S-400 and Moscow greenlighted that. It's all only speculations as of now out there. No final decision, I guess, has been made yet, and there are no factual information is available. But I'm skeptical that UAE will get this S-400. You will see. Thank you again, Wayward, for your interesting comments, interesting questions, and attention and support and donations through Super Chat. And there was a premium subscription gift card difference from Viper. Thank you very much, Viper, for a premium subscription gift card on Rumble, which is a $5 donation, of course. Thank you, Viper, for your very generous supporter, one of the biggest supporters of my work and this project of mine. So thank you, Viper. Thank you very much. And I guess I reacted on all super chats, correct? I think I reacted on all super chats, on everything. So that's it for today, dear friends. Then it's almost 3 hours. Almost 3 hours. Almost 3 hours, and well, hopefully you find new segment interesting, and hopefully you find the community chat part of it when I was reacting on super chats and comments from PayPal and other support platforms interesting too. Thank you all, dear friends, for your attention. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.